Hey y'all, hope you're doing well today. So in today's message, I wanted to share with you some thoughts that I've had after reading through a good portion of this book today. And I actually have not started in the beginning. I'm just kind of flipping through and reading different portions out of the book. But it's given me a lot of things to think about. So I just want to share some thoughts with you all today. I want to start the message by explaining that the foundation of the message today is going to be centered around the concept of there being one truth, like one greater, all-encompassing truth, right? Which we've kind of mentioned before on the channel. And just think of this one great, truth, like the only real truth, as being what has always been and what always will be, right? So you can definitely bring in a spiritual aspect to this. So in this book, it's very interesting because the subtitle to the book, it's the Emerald Tablet, but then it's Alchemy for Personal Transformation. And so if you think about what alchemy is, it's where you create a new substance from the reaction of, I guess, two or more other different substances, right? So they come together, there's a reaction, and then there's a result, right, that's totally new. And so if you think about this through a metaphorical lens, through your personal growth, your spiritual journey, you may be reminded of, if you've been watching my channel, some of the stories from the book Women Who Run with the Wolves. I'm reminded just, in the moment of the story of Sealskin, Soulskin, where the seal woman was representative of the soul, and then you had the fisherman that represented the ego, and they came together and married, and they had a child, right? Which was symbolic of what is born from that marriage of soul and ego, right? The physical and the spiritual, right? So it's it's incredible. I didn't really expect this, but in reading through this book, there's so many aspects that are right in alignment with the hero's journey, and even just deep spiritual truths that cross different boundaries with belief systems and structures. So it's just really, it's kind of like it gives you a different lens to understand what ultimately all points back to this one major truth, all that is, right? And so if you view it in that way, it's kind of like you're going to find yourself connecting dots. It's like I mentioned it before, it's like you get these little puzzle pieces or nuggets of wisdom along the way, along your path in life. And then as you are gifted different lenses to apply, like think of it like you're this explorer or like a scientist, and you're just looking through different microscopes, right, or different lenses to just zoom in and view these nuggets that you've had for some time, that you've carried with you. And it's like you get a little bit of understanding through this one, and then you apply this other lens, and there's like another layer of understanding, and it's really fun because it validates the prior understanding you have, but it just adds more to it. So as that happens, it's like building, it's like connecting all these dots to create, like slowly putting together puzzle pieces, and you can start to see the bigger picture, okay? And this is really important for a lot of reasons, but we're going to talk about some things that are very applicable to our life today, right? With regards to what it means to operate in this world, acknowledging that, there is a layer of darkness that is harmful, that we need to be aware of, and we need to be on the lookout for, what it means to construct our shield or to put on the armor of God. Like, what does that mean? So all of this is going to play a part in that, okay, in the message today. So I love the tagline here being Alchemy for Personal Transformation, right? So you can look at that alchemical process as literal and physical, which is true, and evidenced by the process itself, but you can also understand that because there is this one greater truth, the same process applies on many different levels or layers, right? Or aspects of reality, not just the physical, but also the spiritual and the intellectual, I would argue, right? So I'm starting to come to an understanding or a realization, just this is my lens, okay, that a part of growing our discernment is learning to recognize patterns, okay? For many of us, it's just a natural thing that happens, and it's, a lot of people call this, it's so transformative to start, connecting dots for people, that a lot of times you hear them call this feeling like they've been called or chosen, to awaken, like an awakening process, a spiritual rebirth. So there's great significance to this process of personal transformation. It's real. And sometimes a lot of us, we just go through it without reading and educating ourselves. We just literally experience it firsthand. And then to want to understand it deeper, that's actually what drives us to research. And then what we're reading about, we've already experienced, and maybe that's the only way it can really happen, is to go through the experience first and then make sense of it, later. I don't know, but that's how it's worked for me. So it's very validating, right? But what it tells you is when you can find what you've just experienced in real life as being written all throughout history over and over again in different cultures and symbolized in different ways with art and imagery and poems and literature and everything. When you see this and you've lived it, then it's kind of like, oh, so this must have been expected. This must be a regular thing that happens, like in stages, like a pattern that happens as part of the greater design of our human experience, like what we're meant to go through, like destiny on that level. I think there's a lot of little aspects of our life where free will is at play, which is part of the divine design too, but there's this overarching truth that's like a container that everything happens within. And you're still going on this same growth journey or path. It just may look different depending on your choices, right? That's where your free will comes in. So, yes, it's like you start becoming able more and more to see patterns, and you start to understand there seems to be this formula to reality. It's like you're seeing the divine design, which brings a lot of us closer to God. It strengthens our beliefs, our faith. And I think it's important for us to understand that while you are naive and ignorant that there is this formula or there are expected patterns that a person's process of maturity will take with regards to their psyche and their, your mind, your intellect, and your spirituality. When a person's ignorant of that, then I believe it can be used against them. So I want to talk about archetypal imagery because it's important, because it can help us to dig in deeper into our own psyche than language. Language, I've mentioned before, is very restrictive. It's got a lot of limitations. It's confining in that manner. But imagery is more encompassing, okay? And this book mentions the importance of the initial design of tarot cards, okay? And I know that we've been given a lot of warnings, especially if you're part of a Christian community. It's heavily advised against looking at tarot cards and things like that, and anything related to trying to determine fortune, because you are aware that there are supernatural beings, not only angels of light, but angels of darkness. So I understand that. But again, I'm reminded of one of my favorite verses, which is, wisdom is the principal thing, and with all you're getting, get understanding. So I don't believe that God intends for us to be in the dark about things, right? Because again, I mentioned recently, what you don't know can hurt you. So, I was gifted a pack of tarot cards from my aunt, actually, many years ago, and I kind of flipped through them and looked at them and thought immediately, my first impression, I didn't know anything about them, was, they're heavily, they're all about symbolism. It's heavy symbolism in the imagery. So that definitely piqued my interest. But I want to share with you a little bit out of the book with regards to archetypal imagery. So if you have the book in the paperback, it's going to be on page 335. I'm going to just share one sentence from that, and then we're going to quickly turn to page 337. So let's go ahead and go to that. All right. So this is in the section called the chemistry, or the chapter called The Chemistry of Miracles. Okay, the chemistry of miracles. And then the section within that is called Sacred Images of the Tarot. So it says the original name for the tarot cards was Nabi, N-A-B-I, which is an Arabic word for wise men, right? So I thought that was really interesting. So I've highlighted so much, but I'm going to go ahead and skip to this, because this really caught my attention on 337. It says, our modern 52 card deck of playing cards evolved directly from the 78 card tarot deck. The number 0, or the full card, is still present as the extra joker card, but all the rest of the tarot trump cards were removed by Christian authorities in the 15th century. Now, backing up a little bit earlier, it explains that they're supposed to go in order, apparently. And again, I know nothing about this. I'm just now learning, so excuse me if I'm presenting any kind of errors here. But I believe I read prior to this somewhere in here that the full card is supposed to be like the bottom. 0, like the starting point, and the images are supposed to act kind of like the book I shared with you guys yesterday, Be Here Now, how it's like an unfolding. Each card is like its own. They described the deck of tarot cards like an unbound book, and each card is meant to be like a standalone poster that's supposed to, reach a certain part of I don't know, the collective unconscious, the unconscious, the divine part inside of us, some deep part inside of us that it's supposed to resonate with, to help to make us more and more conscious, to peel back those layers of the fog, right? To accelerate the awakening process. So I thought that was really interesting, and it starts by being naive, or what they call, what's represented in the deck by the full card, right? So it's talking here about the heavy, what's the word I'm looking for? Censorship, right? Yes. So it says all the rest of the tarot trump cards were removed by Christian authorities in the 15th century. Okay? The established churches recognized the archetypal power of the tarot images to awaken spiritual forces in people working outside the church, and saw the trump cards as a threat to their control. So, a big theme on my channel is about freedom, and not being bound by the darkness in any way, including how it manifests through controlling people who wish to manipulate you and keep you in the dark and confuse you and lie to you on purpose, right? So ignorance is used, is exploited in that manner to keep us disempowered, right? Because again, it says it would awaken spiritual forces. That's powerful in people working outside the church, and saw the trump cards as a threat to their control. They admitted the pictures were part of a spiritual process, but insisted they represented the rungs of a ladder leading to the depths of hell, and not the realm above, as promised by Hermes. It says in 1378, the tarot was banned in Germany, in 1381 in France, and in 1441 in Italy. So there's something to be said, I feel like, when multiple world governments, come together and decide to keep something from people. I mean, what's the danger here, right? They're trying to say that it's like it's going to take you straight to hell, right? Then why does it resonate? Why would these images resonate with people? Why have psychologists, psychotherapists like Clarissa Pinkola Estes been able to represent archetypal imagery through folklore as a means to heal people from their trauma? Because what happens when a person's healed from their trauma and they're no longer naive about things? They're empowered. They're empowered at that point. So we start to understand the motivation here, okay? So then on page 338 it says, I skipped a little bit here, but like the ancient Egyptian priests of Amen, the Christian priests decreed that the common people could not know the greater secrets, and that they could enter the presence of God only through serving under the yoke of the church. Okay, I'm thinking about Jesus going in and flipping tables. That's kind of what I'm seeing, what I'm reminded of here. In another demonstration of their jealous control of the human spirit. Who does that sound like? The churchmen also eliminated the innocuous night cards from the tarot. And then it says at the end of this section, by 1450, the established religious authorities had deliberately removed all the archetypal power from the tarot and eliminated any group that might have tried to restore it. So I'm reminded here even of Jesus. And, there's a big difference in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And of course we could take this in a million different directions, but just what comes to my mind with regards to our topic today is how in the Old Testament, I feel like ritual and habits that were approved of by this authoritative church, right, which existed for profit, they were encouraged. It's like, I feel like people try to obtain their salvation through what they were told to do by these actual physical processes, right? And what's the word I'm looking for? Not celebrations, but like just rituals. And then in the New Testament, here comes Jesus, and he's like, no. It's, first of all, you can't obtain salvation by doing stuff. You can't like work your way into heaven. You know what I mean? It's only, he says, I am the way. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And, even archetypally, looking at Jesus through symbolism, it would mean surrender, right? Crucifixion of the ego, if you just want to apply that lens to it, right? So, and what would that mean? That would totally disqualify anything you could do through the ego, like some type of physical ritual or something. Like that's going to, fix everything. So when you're comparing the Old Testament and the New Testament, I feel like you're seeing things going from the material to the spiritual. And it's kind of like going from the false reality to the real reality. And so that's another thing to just contemplate on if you enjoy just sitting with food for thought and just marinating in it and seeing what comes up is, what is the real reality? Is it truly just what we can detect with our senses, this physical reality, or is there more? Maybe this is just a component of a larger reality that we can't detect with our senses, but that is still at work in our lives and very influential very influential over our lives. We're a part of that too, the spiritual element. So there's a lot to think about here, but these archetypal images are powerful, and that's proof. The fact that they were banned, they were censored and then banned altogether in history, that's pretty incredible to me. I truly believe that archetypal imagery helps us to dig in deeper into our psyche, right? So what does the word archetype mean? It's an original pattern from which copies are made. An original pattern from which copies are made. And I'm reminded of the verse, early in the Bible that says, let us make man in our image, right? So it reminds me again of the allegory of the cave that I shared with you guys recently, where we can't see the real, the wholeness of God, of all that is the Alpha and Omega. All we have are the shadows inside the cave. It's almost like our senses, our limited human perceptions, place us in that cave metaphorically. And it represents our limitations as a human being. Being able to perceive what that one truth really is, what God really is, right? We can't define God in language, but we get a little bit closer when we remove language and we use images. Again, you have those shadows, right? And that's what we can look at. So it gets us a little bit closer to, awakening. So I like to think of archetypal images as keys that tap into this part of us, right, that has a deeper knowing beyond language. This part of us. I would propose the spiritual part of us, that divine spark, okay? So it's really interesting when you think about the Bible talking about the Word, okay? And it says in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So I want to share with you John chapter 16, verse 7 here. Says, nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It is expedient for you that I go away. For if I do not go away, this is Jesus talking to his disciples, right? For if I do not go away, the Comforter will not come into you or unto you. But if I depart, I will send him unto you. So in this book, it's talking about this this journey that starts here on the bottom and ascends, right? And then comes back down, and I'm reminded of that hero's journey. So it's like you're connecting both the physical material reality of this world and the above, the spiritual element, right? And so it's that baby that comes from that cosmic wedding of as above, so below, right? This relationship. There is a relationship, right, between God and his offspring, us. There's this connection there. And I feel like anything that seeks to, which the darkness does, so when I say anything, I mean people, anyone who is operating in the darkness that is seeking to kind of just hog all the good things about this reality for themselves, through laws and just so many different avenues, right? And some laws are great. Some laws are very much needed. Others, you kind of have to, look a little deeper to look at what the motivation is. But my point is, there are people who are greedy, operating in extreme greed, and they use our naivety, our inability to connect with that divine part within us to keep us disempowered, right? So I do believe there's a divine design to behold in this reality, and I do believe that it's logical. It's what created order from chaos. So logic is a big part of the divine design, okay? And because of that, when your eyes are open, so to speak, when that veil has been pierced, it's like patterns start to emerge once you know to look for them, okay? But when we are ignorant of them, see, here's the danger. They can be hijacked and manipulated, okay? So looking for patterns, synchronicities, and archetypal imagery, which I truly believe is very much deserving of our attention, okay? So I want to share with you on page 347, it says, talking about when I just said, how these things can be hijacked and manipulated, right? So it says, page 347, it's using the formula, or what I call the divine design in everyday life. This is chapter 21. It says, many advertisers are savvy to the power of alchemical imagery and make use of it to implant subtle associations in our subconscious minds. For instance, a recent McDonald's television commercial shows a tiny, empty, deep red McDonald's restaurant splashed in golden accents with a metallic yellow disc of the sun 1,000 times larger rising directly behind it. It says Akhenaten himself could not have dreamed of a more intriguing image of the operation of the sun. But just how exalted an image of a hamburger chain do advertising executives really want to project? Are the golden arches really the 2 pillars of Hermes? What next? A free copy of the Emerald Tablet with every Happy Meal? And it's kind of like when your eyes are open, you see it everywhere. The symbolism, and it's really incredible. So think about this. If there is within us an aspect of the divine, which I believe there is, then it stands to reason that certain things, when we see them, would resonate with us, okay? So this is important, because when something resonates with us, what does that mean? Essentially, it means that it rings true. When it resonates, it's taken in as truth, okay? But if we are unaware of how and why something resonates, we feel it, but we don't understand it. With all our getting, we're supposed to be getting understanding. So when we feel it, but we don't understand it, right? We're unaware of how and why something resonates, then the meaning can be switched out for a substitute, thereby exploiting our position of being open to then insert a lie. It's like something registering as true can act like a key for us to become impressionable, like hypnotism, okay? So it's like teasing us with truths. When we're teased with a truth, but we don't have the logic piece of it, then it's like opening a door in our psyche, right? At that point, lies are transferred over and we adopt them as acceptable, even though there are clues that are screaming at us, like, our body may feel uncomfortable. We may be feeling anxiety or confusion, which is often in hindsight. Like, wait a second. Why'd they say that? Or why'd that happen? Or that doesn't even make sense, Think about all the songs and, where it's like, huh? Like, somebody high when they made that song, or what happened? So it's like, I just want you to understand that, or consider this, okay? This is an understanding for me, but I invite you to consider this, that are we discouraged through fear of studying archetypal imagery and symbolism, and why is that? Just something to think about. Just some food for thought today to get the wheels turning, and I hope that it's been interesting for you. I hope that you are encouraged to dive deeper into those things that interest you, and I just thank you so much for coming along to hear the message, and I hope that you have a beautiful day. I'll see you again very soon.